Alpine driver Franco Colapinto says he's focused on maximizing his races through to 2025's season finale in Abu Dhabi, rather than worrying about whether he'll be retained for next season. Colapinto, who replaced Jack Doohan at Alpine from Imola, remains the only driver on the grid without points, with the second Alpine seat in 2026 set to be a straight fight between him and reserve Paul Aron. But Colapinto is remaining cool and told official podcast Beyond the Grid that he'd much rather work on things he can control.
I think I want to keep building on this year. There is more to learn and I have much more to find, but I'm feeling better in the car, in the team, and I'm feeling that we are doing a good job all together. Of course, it's no secret that the car is not where we want to be and it's not good enough at the moment to be in the points, but it will come the time that it is, and I want to be ready for that.
Classic Italian track Mugello was the place to be last week when Haas was on site to provide its ex-pilot Romain Grosjean with a chance to again drive an F1 car after 5 years away. Grosjean last raced for the growing American team at the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix, where he endured the fiery accident that ended his F1 career before his transatlantic switch to Indycar. The Swiss Frenchman enjoyed the wet conditions and said it was fantastic to drive F1's new generation of cars. His emotions got the better of him, though, when the pit lane applauded his return to the pits. Ex-Haas team boss Guenther Steiner says McLaren are overcomplicating things in trying to be too fair to their drivers in their fight for a maiden title. McLaren hit the news headlines after Monza, where Lando Norris allowed his teammate Oscar Piastri to pit first to cover off Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. But a botched stop for the Brit saw Piastri get past, and the pair were then switched back to honor the deal. Azerbaijan saw no McLaren battle at the front, but that action is expected to resume in Singapore this week. But Steiner told the Inside Line the top squad should just let its drivers race.
I think they try to be too fair and they overcomplicate it. Sometimes you overthink something because, again, if you want to be fair, then you have to blow up an engine on Oscar's car. Because in the pit stop, obviously, it wasn't Lando's fault, but it was not Oscar's fault. So it's part of racing, a pit stop, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Obviously, I'm not running the team and it's not a criticism, but I would not handle that one as saying you need to let him pass.
Staying with McLaren, where its racing division is now valued at $4.1 billion, following a recent 30% stake sale that puts it and the overall McLaren group under the full ownership of Mumtalakat, Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund, and CYVN Holdings. McLaren Racing is the Papaya brand's hallowed motorsport arm that runs teams in F1, IndyCar, and gaming. And from 2027, its hypercar squad in the World Endurance Championship. The recent valuation puts McLaren, which is on course to win its second straight constructors' title in Singapore this weekend, just behind Ferrari, which was recently valued at $4.8 billion. Mercedes has lauded George Russell for storming to second in the last race in Baku, despite being unwell all weekend. Russell suffered a fever throughout the Azerbaijan Grand Prix event, but impressed after he qualified in fifth and moved up to finish second in the race, astonishing his colleagues in the process.
I think by yours and my standards, he was pretty poorly. You definitely wouldn't imagine that someone as crook as he was would clamber into a car and go racing it. Our reserve driver is Valtteri, and briefing Valtteri about this possibility, and Valtteri in his phlegmatic way just went, he'll be okay. And I think that's not so much that George was well, it's that the standard that the drivers set for themselves is that they will clamber into a car if they can force themselves to do so.
Cadillac has reportedly bolstered its technical efforts behind its emerging Grand Prix team, with news it signed former Audi F1 CEO Adam Baker to lead its power unit efforts on the ground. Baker, who set up Audi's F1 power unit department, where he remained until earlier this year, will join with Russo Blinas, CEO of General Motors Performance Power Units, to develop power plants for the 2029 season. Aston Martin test and reserve driver Felipe Drugovich looks set to turn his back on a shot at the F1 grid, with news that he's signed to join Andretti in all-electric series Formula E from season 12. Drugovich won the F2 championship in 2022, but has failed to get interest from F1 teams for a race seat, with his Aston Martin role a jab in the arm that has kept his dream alive throughout. The Brazilian has continued to race sports cars in that time, including at Le Mans, but got a chance to return to single-seaters this year in Formula E with Mahindra at the penultimate doubleheader in Berlin, where he finished 7th in the second for 6 points. Drugovich will join Andretti for the final season of the Gen 3 Evo era and race alongside Jake Dennis, Season 9 world champion. It'll be all eyes on the iconic Indianapolis Motor Speedway in mid-October, with F1 outcast Mick Schumacher set to test for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing on the track's road course. Schumacher spent 2 years racing in F1 with backmarker Haas in 2021 and 2022, before moving on to the sidelines as Mercedes reserve in 2023. He then cut ties with the Silver Arrows to focus on a return to racing via a World Endurance Championship hypercar drive with Alpine, with 2025 his second season with the French Marc. Schumacher's test, set for October 13, will give the German a chance to get to grips with an Indycar, with an eye, the team said, towards possible participation in the future. Ex-F1 driver Felipe Massa is set to appear before the UK's High Court on October 28, with the Brazilian seeking $82 million in damages in the Crashgate lawsuit he's brought against Formula One management, the FIA, and former Supremo Bernie Ecclestone. Massa is seeking justice for the inaugural Singapore Grand Prix, which Renault fixed for the win. The Brazilian claims individuals at both F1 and the FIA were aware of what happened at that fateful race weekend in 2008, when results could have been overturned. Massa, then driving for Ferrari, was leading the race at Marina Bay before the infamous Crashgate saga and lost the 2008 title at the final round in Brazil by just a single point to Lewis Hamilton.
My memory is very good on that year. I'm sure he remembers very well what's happening in Interlagos in the last race of the season. You know, so at the end, anyway, this is nothing against him. So this is against a race that he was manipulated.
Thanks for watching. To stay up to speed on all things Formula One, make sure you hit the subscribe button.